A gunshot. The shrill sound tore through the silence inside the apartment.
Luxurious.
The man's scream of pain rang out,
Just then, an assassin slowly stepped out of the shadows.
but the man seemed to have collapsed.
Suddenly rose up like a wild animal, quickly snatched the gun from the opponent's hand. He immediately turned around and pulled the trigger. Finish of the assassin with a shot to the head.
But at this moment, the situation suddenly changed.
I don't know since when.
A woman with a sexy body appeared behind him. The two men exchanged a few quick moves,
And then we're out the window together.
This couple is finally AI.
Why did they show up at the scene? There's bloody murder.
And behind them are dark secrets.
No one knows.
But what surprised people was that, the next day, the two of them met again,
Talk like close friends.
sighing.
About the trivialities of everyday life. Turns out they're a couple.
My husband's name is Jack, a kind man with a mild phobia.
Laura's wife has a personality. Hentai 8 open. Very good relationship with people around.
Only thing,
The fate of this couple is not trivial,
they both used to be illustrious agents.
because he hated the endless life of killing.
So I decided to retire, completely out of the agency. They took refuge in a peaceful mountain resort.
Living a mediocre but extremely precious life. The dark past in the career.
Spying has become a memory,
They hide it in the heart.
but fate is sometimes unexpected.
An accident suddenly happened, like a bomb falling from the sky.
Immediately break the peace. In the morning that day, George is hiking,
With friends in the nearby forest. Everyone just left.
just talking in a comfortable mood. But right now,
A sudden explosion of shock,
then a column of black smoke rises.
billowing from deep in the forest.
George and his friends rush to look. But the sight in front of them horrified them. A small plane has crashed into the forest, body part distorted by VO touch.
There are still flickering flames around.
George immediately checked the status of the pilot. It turns out they were both shot. Years of experience as an agent.
It made me realize right away that.
The sniper is probably still hiding nearby.
So I asked the others to leave. Then take out a pill. Fly from the pilot's belly.
George didn't know that. The whole conversation between you and your friends has been communication equipment on the plane to tie Richard, an employee of the US Central Intelligence Agency. Richard immediately guessed George's identity, combined with your unusual appearance. At the crime scene, Richard suspects that the former C agent, he joined an international spy organization.
It's called the Wing.
He contacted another former agent named Strong.
I hope this person can help solve the case.
After strong deliberation, agreed to take the task. In another development, George, after getting the pill,
Preparing to leave with friends.
but the next second, the sniper hiding in the grass suddenly appeared.
Then an aggressive convoy came. Out of the car came a man.
Tall, big, athletic. This guy named Olymp is the leader of the armed group. Olymp asked George and his friends what they were doing here. When a friend replies in French, Olympus didn't say a word. They shot him immediately.
Then he pointed his black gun at George.
But George was surprisingly calm again.
Olin looked at him for a moment and put the gun down. But as soon as Olin just turned his back,
George snatched the gun in his hand. A junior standing next to him.
shooting at the mercenaries,
At the same time,
Laura watched the smoke rise from the mountain. There's an unwholesome feeling in your heart.
not long after, of course, the gunfire thundered from the distance.
Laura knew right away that something was wrong. She turned to send a message. Then rush you back home. When you get home, you break the mirror. Take a piece of sharp glass and give it to you in your room.
And tell your friend to stay in the room. Don't go out.
Back to Jack. You're still fighting the mercenaries. Because they're overwhelmed in numbers. You can only use the terrain and the trees as a shield. Accurately destroy the pursuers.
This group of mercenaries is armed with modern weapons.
Fight clearly not and M. Facing waves of enemies like floodwaters,
Job dare not risk fighting. They can only fight and retreat.
he then stole an enemy fighting vehicle, rushing forward and forward.
But the mercenaries are obviously not easy to let go. The rain of bullets flowed like water towards George. Even worse, the car suddenly broke down right at the right time.
Go straight to the front trunk and die.
But the water is still slapping.
I saw a motorcycle coming. The job came up with a plan,
He was hiding behind the car, waiting for the motorcycle to arrive.
then suddenly burst out and shot the steering wheel.
Take the car and escape. Who are these people after all? What does this have to do with the plane crash? And what fate awaits George and Laura?
Not long after,
Olymp led him to the small forest where George was hiding.
he's screaming in the woods for George to come out.
I see no response.
He left a few men to continue the search, and I took the rest of them to the resort. Conspiracy to kidnap Laura.
What did he want to do?
Why did he chase and kill George? Olin has left.
George cautiously protruded Oi's head from behind the rock,
You dodged the sniper's pursuit.
speeding towards the resort on a motorbike. Meanwhile,
Mike also started acting on Syrian orders.
I saw the helicopters roaring overhead. George was more worried.
In another development, Laura is changing shape in a planned way,
She takes off the wig.
and unnecessary jewelry. Then, change into a black combat suit and bulletproof vest. Then she hid a handgun and dagger on her side. Finally put on a black jacket.
Take the fear out of the house. In a clearing in the forest.
She burned the whole veer and everything inside. Then she went back to the neighborhood.
But I found a black jeep.
Parked in front of my house. Next to him are 2 men armed with weapons.
One of you is obviously a soldier.
Laura hid in the distance and watched them carefully.
And then get the eye communication device and send a message.
Olin is now asking the soldier to send more men. It comes from their conversation.
You can see that these two are not on the same side. So what makes these two forces different?
Deciding to cooperate,
Back to my friend's house.
Laura immediately told her friend to hide under the bed.
She pulled the sun curtain and adjusted the table lamp to make it less dark.
Not long after, a group of mercenaries came despite the rain and wind. Laura had foreseen to hide behind the wall with a gun.
The enemy is closing in on you. You decided to shoot the first two. That's what the mercenaries in the back see.
Rushed to support,
But was beaten to a pulp by Laura. Finally, she was knocked down with a knife.
fatal almost at the same time.
Joe also escaped the pursuit and returned to the resort. However, he was in no hurry to go home.
But carefully observed the surroundings. Then he broke into an empty house. No one to say temporarily. Then he called Kusuria.
Asked Richard about the plane crash, but Richard said he knew nothing. No other way. George had to tell Richard that.
Olympic also appeared at the scene. The plane crash.
And you know what Olympin's there for. Because you just now.
I found a USB stick. Hidden in the flying pill. Obviously Olympic came to take it.
And George was sure that Syria.
I'm also interested in this USB. So he offered to trade Richard. It's a USB stick in exchange for freedom for you and Laura. Richard was obviously shocked by his decision.
But not in time to recover.
Then George unleashed another blockbuster. I've known Mike for a long time.
Should have Richard tell Mike to come see me.
Then Job hung up and contacted Laura. She is preparing to go out now.
To dispose of the dead bodies in the house.
No, Laura is safe. So Laura breathed a sigh of relief. 2 people exchanging information found out that Olympia and Mike had both arrived at the resort. They feel a terrible headache because we have to discuss the action plan. Next, Laura suggested meeting to talk face to face. But Job said, I have a very important thing to do.
Right.
He then appears at Mike's temporary hideout. I saw my old friend appear in the house. Mike cordially greets you.
Then ask about a flying pill. However, George said he couldn't find it.
Mike understood immediately.
It seems that despite being hired by Richard.
But Mike's for rock. Mike then explained that flying pill contains some encrypted documents. But so far no AI has been able to decipher it. I advise you not to spend too much effort on it.
Mike made an excuse to go to the bathroom. But right now, George suddenly stood up.
Take out a test tube in the room, then point the gun at the toilet.
Mike just walked out.
I saw the black gun pointed at me.
I was so scared to shoot myself. But George didn't want to keep messing with him.
Directly ask what these test tubes are for. I saw George's serious face. Mike had to tell the whole truth.
Turns out,
These test tubes contain a new drug.
and the pilots on the plane that crashed.
It's also a test subject for this drug.
Just when you two are talking, the screeching sound of brakes suddenly came from downstairs.
Next, a group of aggressive mercenaries surrounded the small house.
It was clear that a clash was inevitable. In contrast to George, who was worried.
Mike, with rich diving experience, is very calm.
He picked up a 12-gauge AA automatic rifle.
Gun bolt ready for combat.
At this time, the mercenaries also rushed upstairs.
The results can also be predicted by AI.
With just 2 shots.
Mike killed them all.
In another development,
C sees the great value of USB. Quickly formed an action group, determined at all costs to recover it.
at the same time, Erling wanted the USB drive. While the CIA was focusing on George,
He assembled a small army to capture Laura.
who are still at the resort. All the points are aimed at the retired couple. How they're going to get through this crisis. In the dark, Laura kills a guard.
Then sneak into a building.
This is where a friend is kept.
I went hiking with George.
In the morning,
Laura approached the guard inside.
in a fast way, and then he killed him decisively.
However, the noise attracted the attention of the soldiers downstairs. They rushed upstairs to check, but just walked up the stairs.
A soldier was shot and fell down. The rest of the people knew right away something was wrong.
They hold guns cautiously.
Entered the room, but did not have time to react.
Laura suddenly appeared from behind in a flash.
After a quick hit,
All 4 soldiers were killed.
just as Laura was preparing to dispose of the body, then another army came.
Laura pretended to raise her hands in surrender, then took advantage of the moment when the soldiers were off guard.
She immediately pulled out the dagger hidden in Ai's shirt.
Strong attack.
However, despite the martial arts, But a tree shouldn't be young.
Laura was eventually controlled by a soldier.
He was taken into custody along with the other hostages.
Back to George and Strong.
They're still fighting the mercenaries downstairs. The situation came to a standstill right now.
Olympin got the message and went to the scene. He asked the mercenaries downstairs.
At SART, the captain explained that
2 people in the house with modern weapons, so they don't dare move.
heard that Olin was very angry.
He paid the rent. They're not here for a sightseeing trip. So he ordered the captain.
Let people at the entrance to the building. The next second, the gunshot went off. See crazy, Olin.
The other mercenaries were so scared. This monkey scare chicken killing trick has worked. No one dares to defy Olympic orders anymore.
At the same time, George hiding in the room also saw this scene. I told you everything that happened to Mike here.
But don't understand SAU Mike seems very strange.
George rushed over to help him up, but unexpectedly just got closer. Mike took the opportunity to give him an injection. George stared in disbelief. After all, Mike promised to help him. Now, what does that mean?
Luckily, after injecting the drug,
No immediate side effects.
but Mike ignored his question.
Then grabbed the pistol next to him.
Precise aiming at roadside power equipment.
The whole street was instantly plunged into darkness.
As soon as the lights go out, the armed forces below immediately took position.
Ready to fight.
Serlin looked up at the dark windows.
Order everyone to attack immediately, even if we have to level this building.
Then we must catch George tonight. Then he fired several flares into the building.
Immediately, an attack team.
Rush in, however.
These people clearly have no combat experience. Just walked up the stairs. They were hidden in the dark by George and Mike.
Take them down one by one. Then the 2 fought like hot dogs.
Quick, destroy all enemies hiding in the building. Then the 2 men fired at the wall.
The wall quickly withstood the force of the breach.
George immediately rushed to break down the wall.
They have not yet exited the building. Mike threw a grenade. The outer wall immediately exploded. A large hole.
Just in time for you to leave.
Mike finds a USB stick on the ground.
He knows now.
George had found the flying pill before.
Without a word, Mike punches George down.
He then stole the USB stick and walked away.
Don't turn your head.
Laura was being interrogated by a soldier. Captain Crew couldn't hide his anger.
In memory of the dead. He didn't hesitate to punch Laura.
Next, row 6 controls Laura.
And found a satellite phone.
I know this is a couple's own communication device.
He forced Laura to send.
Call for help to get George to come.
There's no other way.
Laura had to enter a few lines of code into the Crow device.
Just going to see the content.
Suddenly, the phone exploded.
I saw my partner shot dead.
The crew hurriedly wrestled Laura to the ground. The 2 immediately wrestled with each other.
Every move is cruel to the danger.
They obviously want to take the enemy's life.
The air is filled with gas. After a fierce battle.
They're both exhausted, like an arrow that's fired at them. Look at the dagger deep in your stomach. Laura tried to take the pain and pick up the gun on the ground.
Crow tried to raise his gun. However, soon after, the crow's gun handle slowly lowered.
There was no strength left to continue fighting. He tried to beg Laura to spare his life, but as a professional agent, Laura SAO can spare the tiger to the forest.
She slowly walked to the side of the crow.
Then take action to finish him off.
In another development, George is still in a tough fight. In the face of heavy firepower, the handgun Mike gave me worked great. George shot down every enemy.
One relies on the wall as a shield to fight.
But the bullets also. You'll have to get out of hiding.
Take out your handgun. Go ahead.
But right now, George was hit by a massive explosion.
He fell to the ground and couldn't move. Now Ollie hiding on one side finally appeared. Ask me where the USB is.
George did not immediately answer, but asked the opposite. What's inside? But Olin completely ignored him helplessly. George had to be honest with him.
The USB was stolen by Mike.
This surprised the Olympics. He didn't expect Mike to be involved.
But he quickly understood the problem.
It seems that the US government is also looking at the USB.
The USB is lost. So the Olympics didn't continue to make George difficult. The opposite. He even invited him to work together to steal the USB from Mike's hand.
At the same time, the CIA was planning.
They finally decided what? A drone came to attack.
Exactly, George.
Laura and Olymp, determined to destroy. All the AIs know about the existence of the USB.
And then Richard got George's phone call.
Kill the drone is ready. He immediately stopped pretending.
A voice full of arrogance and contempt. Just let go.
The threat was that George would die before dinner.
That Richard wanted to kill a murderer.
Laura immediately pushed the desk in the room to create a natural hiding place, and then heaped the bodies in the room.
And I went down. Used the dead as a shield.
To counter the attacks. Not long after,
The CIA's drone roared overhead.
heat sensing system quickly locate the bar people.
Rain of bombs and bullets.
After a heavy bombardment,
3 people were lucky to survive. George and Olymp rush into the building. Avoid a new attack. Right after that,
they burned books in the house to create a fake fire.
to fool the sensor system.
The beat of the drone
This trick is effective. However, the other mercenaries on the ground
accidentally became a victim. As soon as they got out of the car, they were shot at then to ONG.
At this time, 2 people in the house were aiming at drone.
Because of the disadvantage, they were quickly injured.
The fire behind was also out of control,
Staying at home is clearly not a good solution.
so the 2 people decided to run out of the building.
Continue to fire at the drone in the sky. With a deafening bang,
Drones are circling overhead, blown to pieces.
just as George breathed a sigh of relief, then suddenly Olin pulled a gun to his head.
Turns out, he didn't really want to cooperate.
I just want to take advantage of George's abilities to escape the scrutiny of the US government.
Now, the danger is over. George is no longer worth taking advantage of. Olymp was about to pull the trigger.
There's a gunshot coming from behind. Laura escaped and came to save George.
But I can't breathe.
Another drone came crashing in,
The house behind.
covered in fire.
But fortunately, you were able to get out of the danger zone in time.
Lucky to escape death. The next morning, the 2 of them were ready to go home.
But when they got to the pier, they found Mike waiting.
George knows how to throw the gun down. Say goodbye to Laura.
But at this moment, Mike suddenly felt unwell. He stumbled towards George.
Then I knew.
George stole the test tube from the table, from the first meeting after,
He put it in a glass of vodka.
and tricked him into drinking to get the antidote.
Mike had to do what George said. He promised to help you get revenge.
But right now, the helicopters roar echoed from the horizon. The cleanup team sent by Richard arrived. The movie is over. Here, the film is about 2 spies after leaving the organization, attacked by intelligence agencies, in their secluded hideout.
After a tough fight, they recovered a stolen critical hard drive.
Movie storyline thrilling, fascinating.
From the beginning, quickly put the audience in the air.
Stress. Continuous attack and chase scenes take place. Keep the audience focused.
Film temperature is controlled very well.
There's just some action. There were conversations and reflections. Relatively gentle.
It makes the story richer and more diverse.
The characters in the movie are very well constructed. Shyness to Starlon,
With a muscular hero figure,
and great acting.
has successfully portrayed an experienced spy, steadfast and brave.
In the face of many dangers and challenges,
You always remain calm and confident.
demonstrate excellent leadership and fighting ability. Green S-Word is also excellent.
His spy role,
Your character is young, active at the same time possessing skills, great expertise and courage,
to create a contrast.
and supplements for the character of the Salon. The movie is not just an action movie.
It's also about deep themes and meanings. Through the story of the spies,
The film explores the themes of loyalty, the betrayal of trust. In the complex world of intelligence,
everyone has their own interests and motivations.
loyalty and betrayal, just a thin line between them.
It also shows light and power, the resilience of man.
Even in the face of many difficulties and dangers, the main characters remain true to their beliefs,
Fight for justice and truth.
The film's visual effects are impressive. The scenes
The action and the technique are well orchestrated.
give the audience experiences.
Strong visual acuity.
Scenes like little bungalows, the street forests in the city are all built, real. It makes the audience feel like they're living in the movie itself.
Movie music and sound effects section. It also adds to the appeal of the film.
Tense music combined with the sound of a violent beating.
It increases the emotions for the viewer.
Movie. New action this launch is definitely worth seeing. Interested AIs can watch the original movie Alam.
And in the end, I don't know what's on the hard drive.
The value of a film lies in its reputation.
The value of a movie review lies in the feeling.